I personally try to go back to the trade-in to put the consumer in his own comfort zone, to create the right feelings by showing interest in him and what he owns.
You're welcome. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. The meet and greet video brought us up to what we're going to cover right now. In this video, we're going to cover the trade evaluation and building a customer profile. This part of the sales process is extremely powerful. It's made many people, including me, a whole lot of money, and it'll help you a great deal. Now, we transitioned to this point from the meet and greet when we suggested to the customer we start with their car. Let's start with your car. That'll save you time and help us to get you the most money for it. Now, this is the absolute best way to find out what you need to know about the customer. We go about this by continuing to offer service to the customer, what's in it for them, rather than asking them direct qualifying type questions the customer does not like. It's also about making sure that we can have an effect on the buyer's trade expectations. You know, there's nothing really new in sales at all. I read a lot. Now I read things that help me in my chosen profession, selling cars. And I bought a book series called the Chrysler Plymouth Salesmanship Series that was published in 1929. Because it used to be the manufacturers provided items like that, salesmanship training materials, in addition to the product knowledge stuff. And I've got several different series on sales for others too, like the Packard Salesmanship Series, published in 1933. Way back then, they were talking about this technique. The way most salespeople handle the trade today is to deal with it after selecting the new car and at the beginning of the write-up. They come back from the demo and ask the customer, if everything is agreeable, would you buy the car? Or words to that effect, looking to get a commitment. And I'll talk in another video about how much it's costing you to chase a commitment before it's time to. When the customer gives this commitment to us, we'll sit the customer down and let them rot while we go out and get information off the trade. Customers not involved in the sale of their own property. They wonder who's doing what with their car and why it's taken so long to get the figures. All the while, they're coming out of the ether. It is crazy that we let that happen. We spent quality time getting them to fall in love with the car. In fact, we got them to the point where they're practically licking the paint off it, and then we let them lose some of that love and feeling while we get information off of it. So by getting the trade evaluation done early in the process, and I mean doing that before selecting the new car, we'll have a much better result from our efforts, and the customer will be happier and more satisfied. So we transition to the trade from the meet and greet like this. Great, let's start with your car. It'll save you time, help us to get you the most money for it. Fair enough? You're not going to object to saving time and getting money. Now we, as salespeople, talk too much. We just keep up a steady stream of talk, hoping something magical will happen, or we'll just impress the heck out of them with our knowledge. We'll flail around trying to find common ground, other things to talk about besides being at the car dealership, but what we choose to start talking about may be of no interest to the buyer at all. Going to the trade early will help us tremendously in the search for common ground and other things to talk about. I mean, think about it. People have all kinds of things in their car. We'll find golf clubs in the trunk, bumper stickers that say I'd rather be fishing, or sports teams. We'll also see things like car seats, magazines that interest them, maybe hats or tools, something that might indicate what kind of work they do, and that could be very helpful to us. We might even find a brochure and a business card from a salesperson at another dealership. Now, wouldn't that be good to know? It's important, though, if you do find a brochure and a card, resist the urge to talk to them about it. So you can see we'll gain all kinds of valuable information just by looking at the trade. We'll also be involving the customer in the sale of their car. Have them read you the VIN. Be prepared to write it down. Read it back to them. That will demonstrate you're paying attention and that you're interested in helping him. Now have him turn the key on, read you the mileage. Write it down. Make sure he knows you got it. Repeat it to him. Now the mileage can open up some possibilities for simple questions. If it's high mileage, you can ask if they travel a lot. If it's low, there's something to say about that also. And of course, there's always, hey, it's about average for this model year. Now I'm going to give you some specific questions to ask in just a minute, so make sure you have something to write with. First, I want to tell you something very powerful about having the customer involved in the sale. Like I said a minute ago, salespeople, we talk too much. When we take the customer to their trade and get them involved with doing things like reading us the VIN and mileage, we're putting them in the position of being the salesperson. Put the customer in that position and he'll do what all salespeople do, and that's volunteer information and talk way too much. They'll tell us things about their car and themselves we'd never think to ask about, because if we did, we might offend them. That book I mentioned earlier said the same thing. Sometimes you might even have to stop the customer from talking. Turn them into a salesperson and watch what happens. If we know how they bought their last car, we'll know how to sell them their next car. People are repetitive by nature. We do the same things all the time. Our routes to and from work don't vary. We watch the same TV shows each week. We eat at the same restaurants all the time. People are comfortable doing what's familiar to them, including when they buy cars. Now for those specific questions you'll need to ask. What do you like most about your car? Find out as much as you can about what they like about it. It'll help in presenting the new car, and that you won't spend a lot of time on features that aren't their top priorities in a new vehicle. The things he says at this point will identify his hot buttons. We want to push those buttons frequently, like when we're waiting on the elevator and just start banging away at that button. What don't you like about this car? Further clarifies what their hot buttons are. Like if they say it gets terrible gas mileage. When presenting the new vehicle, we can point out the savings they'll realize from the better mileage they'll get. Of course, if it gets the same or less miles, don't talk about that. Okay? Ask them, when is the next payment due? Well, it's due in 10 days. Hopefully they won't be telling you it was due 2 months ago. Then ask them, how much is it? It's $376. Now what have we learned? We know that he's been approved for financing by someone at $376 a month. We also know we have at least that much down in 10 days. I also know if they're paying $376 now, we should be able to get them to $475 or $500 for the new one. They've probably already figured that out. Now, I've never bought a car and had the payments go down. It happens, but not to me. When it does happen to people, it's usually people with equity or cash down, or someone stepping down in vehicle. People know payments go up. If we ask them what they planned on for a monthly payment, what's the answer they give us? $250, $300? It's always that way. And if we ask them how much down? Nothing. So don't ask those questions. Answers will only hurt your attitude about the customer. So we found out what they like and don't like about what they're driving now, so that when we're showing the new car, those things they liked are going to be new and improved, vastly superior to what it was in the old car. Stuff they didn't like isn't even going to exist in the new car if it's not an improvement over the current car. Not only that, we found out how much of a payment they're used to making, can make assumptions about what we can move them up to, and that'll help us avoid putting them on too much car. Now, I was trained to do a walk around to the trade, touching the little dings, pointing out problems with it. Don't do that. They know what's wrong with it. Let's do this. Let's give them hope. No matter what it is, tell them we need cars like this. Now, here's a little technique I like a lot. Ask the customer this. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being perfect, 1 being junk, where would you rate your car? I ask that question, they tell me, well, I'd say it's a 7. I tell them, okay, what do you think you'd have to do to make it an 8? They're going to tell me what they have to do to make it better. At the same time, they're devaluing the vehicle in their own minds. Plus, I'll be able to use that in the close if they want too much for the trade. Doesn't matter what number they give it, always ask them what it would take to make it 1 better. So from a 7 to an 8, an 8 to a 9, or even from a 5 to a 6. It's going to have the desired effect. They'll devalue their car so you don't have to. Now, this next little part of the trade evaluation is one I get a lot of people asking me about. I suggest you drive their car with them. I'd say drive it around the block at least. If you're one of those guys, don't have a license, well, you just drive it around on the lot. No matter what the case, I'd urge everyone to at least drive around the lot, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Because if I drive their car, they'll drive mine. Getting a demo of the new car just got a whole lot easier. Another reason is because after having driven their car, whether around the block or just on the lot, I'm in control of the keys. Remember earlier when I told you to be writing down what the customer told you, the VIN, the mileage? I also have that paper. I'm going to tell the customer, I'm going to give the keys and this information to the used car manager. He's going to put a value on it for us. While he's doing that, let's go pick out your new car. Now, I've learned what the buyer's hot buttons are for use in my demonstration and presentation. When I asked them, what do you like most and what do you like least? Gotten an idea about payments and the minimum amount I can expect for down payment. When's your next payment due? How much is it? Customers devalued his trade for me. In addition, I've put the buyer in the position of being a salesperson and made them sell me their car. Mentally, they've sold the car, so selection and delivery becomes much easier. They're gonna need something to drive home. Transitioning to the write-up becomes so much easier also. They're already expecting to come in and find out what we'd pay for their car. Building a profile in this way is superior to the qualifying process that most salespeople use. Asking questions like how are you going to pay for it, how much down and how much a month, other typical questions will build resistance on the buyer's part. And for some it'll turn them off so much that they'll just leave. You may not even know that's why they're leaving. So use the early trade evaluation to set up the things to come. This step in the sales process can make the difference between having a car deal or not. Get the information you need while appearing to have only the customer's interest in mind. This technique will make you a ton of money. As for me, thousands of other salespeople too. Now it's your turn. One last thing to close out this video. If the customer doesn't have the trade or they say they're not trading, you can still use this profile building technique. Once they've told you or indicated they're not trading, let them know that if you can ask a few questions about their current car, it'll help you to help them. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and sell some cars.
Another salesman suggests, as a method of getting the silent type to talk, is to ask him to take you for a ride in his car. The salesman reports that it's an unusual man who can keep quiet in his own car.